I've been with the company for about 25 years. I'm basically the team leader of the development team for List and Label. I get to think with the others about the technical direction we should take for the product and what new features we should implement. I collect customer requests, look around the community, and try to push the development a bit.
So in 1989, I had my first contract with Combit, or rather, I was able to issue the first invoices. So I'm really passionate about this and have been working on List and Label since version 1. It was basically my baby.
I have been with the company Combit for a very, very long time now. I believe I have been with the company since 2003. Originally, I did my training as an application developer here at Combit.
Almost 3 decades ago, when I was still a student, I started my journey with Combit as a student trainee. Looking back on that time, my very first assignment at Combit still sticks in my mind. I was tasked with designing highly complex forms using List and Label, a project that was an integral part of a tax software at the time.
Basically, you have to imagine that we used to have the address manager for DOS, and it could really only output text. It was relatively easy to design. 1 line for the address, 1 line for the first name, stuff like that. And at some point, when the address manager moved to Windows, you had to say, "Stop, we need this thing for Windows too." And because we made all the modules ourselves, we said, "Fine, then we'll also make a report generator and it'll run on Windows." We did it with labels, we did it with index cards, and then one day the boss came and said, "Yeah, and what about lists?" And we were like, yeah, okay, then we need to build a list object.
At one point, List and Label was really only intended for software developers. As a result, we knew that the people who would use it were already very technically savvy and knew what they were doing. However, there were more and more requests from customers who were coming from a major competitor at the time, where little programming knowledge was required. We then thought about how we could set something like this up, and it was clear to us from the beginning that it should be a web solution, and that's how the idea of the report server was born.
The huge advantage of this is that List and Label does not prepare the data itself, but the data comes from external sources. This means that customers, or nowadays .NET, our .NET module, provides the data to List and Label, so it doesn't matter where we get the data from. A customer who has a completely different data format can pass the data to List and Label, and the report is then generated from this. And that's a big advantage over others who always said, "We'll put the database in there, that makes it easy for people." Sure, but if you have a different database, it becomes difficult.
And that just makes it so flexible, because we're completely independent when it comes to the topic. In the end, it doesn't matter to us whether we're in the medical field, in the mathematical field supplying the automotive industry, or if we're just working with ERP or CRM applications. It doesn't matter at all for List and Label. We can basically do everything.
Yes, there were various challenges. First of all, the constant compiler changes. The first time, of course, the address manager was written in Pascal. Then we thought, do we go with Pascal or do we go with C? Back then, there wasn't really any C++ yet. Then we started a bit with C until the Watcom compiler came along, which also understood C++. Then we tried to map it to C++, a big advantage. Then came 32-bit at some point, which was a new challenge, and later 64-bit. Then came the steps to convert all texts from single byte to Unicode 16. These are many technical steps that were very demanding.
Challenges such as relational structures, meaning we had to somehow print hierarchies. We initially approached this by using, we called them multi-tables at the beginning, but then we thought, why only tables? We can include charts too. And that's how the report container was born. We improved the data binding layers step by step, and then, of course, the web and cloud trend came along, to which we had to respond. That means we then revamped with the web designer, and now with the web report designer and the web report viewer. We had to adapt to things like Docker containers. That means we made sure it works, and the challenges just never stop. The next big project now is certainly Linux hosting, and the time has come to think about how we can support it. I have no illusions that there won't be another big project afterwards, but that's what makes it exciting.
I can't think of anything offhand that we could have skipped, because every area or feature we implemented was often a springboard for new innovations, different thinking, a new position in the market, and then became the trigger for new functionalities. So in terms of preparation, we introduced the repository back then, this virtual file system, and that was the springboard for our whole web reporting support, enabling us to handle things much better. I don't think you can just say that we could have avoided that.
Oh, many. There were a lot of things that we could have done a bit differently from the start, or couldn't be done differently back then, had to be replaced internally later with something newer. For instance, the data provider, which is my biggest feature in this regard, I had to deal with it for a long time. We should have implemented the data provider much earlier than we actually did, because the host program really had to throw all the data to list and label at first, even if they are not needed. Up to, yes, okay, you can ask beforehand which data is needed, up to, hey, list and label requests the data itself. This is, of course, a huge step in speed and convenience, but it all had to be worked out internally, and a lot of reconstruction had to be done to support it, especially because the old stuff still has to work too.
Maybe the collection variables, they are pretty cool, but since clearly no one but us needed them, maybe we shouldn't have included them at all.
I would say no. Definitely no, because we always consciously chose things, and we started smaller, more minimalistic, only offering things that might be necessary. And accordingly, there's always a team discussion about whether we should record something. Is it necessary? Can we do without it? And accordingly, I believe everything we currently have is really needed.
Well, I think PDF export is the most important thing and something you really need everywhere these days. Something that needs further development, also for data security reasons, so that this data is secured by Zugford and so on, and remains unchangeable. That will probably become increasingly important in the future.
I think this is also the space on the web, such as the new Web Report Designer that we have had in the product since version 27. It continues to grow with each new version, including the new version 30. The Web Report Designer is constantly getting new features. Another important aspect of web development is the repository. It allows us to no longer rely on project files with list and label, but to manage memory-based projects directly through the repository. That makes it really exciting and cool to use. And that's the part of the web that I think people underestimate, how cool it is and how fun it is to use.
The report server includes a built-in caching mechanism. This feature allows you to temporarily store frequently accessed or resource-intensive reports in the background. For example, if you have a highly complex report that typically takes several minutes to generate, longer than you might expect, this report is cached for a predetermined period of time. As a result, if other users need to access the same report later, it will be available immediately without the usual waiting time. This is an incredibly useful feature that you might not have integrated into your application if you work directly with list and label.
That's a complicated question. List and label is still, I would say, a universally usable report generator.
List and label is a really cool tool.
For me, it's clearly the best reporting tool in the world.
The report server is the face of list and label in the web-based world.
I've learned that you can apply new programming languages to old concepts. It's fun working with the people here. We've grown a lot from initially just 6 or 7 people. It's also enjoyable when people come to me with problems, or when I can help and support them to do things better or faster.
The short, straightforward ways to talk about things, projects, upcoming tasks, and maybe even problems, whether they are customer-related or not. Being able to talk directly to someone and have a quick contact person without having to organize various appointments worldwide or something like that, but just this concentrated, compact combat experience as we live it here, I find it super practical and pleasant to work in the team. And that makes it very valuable. And above all, we are also very agile. We have short decision-making paths, so we can react quickly.
I think we all learned a lot together in that time, because a lot of things just changed. It starts with object-oriented programming. That developed gradually over time. Then we learned a lot about quality assurance. At the beginning of my time, that wasn't a big issue, and so the quality had to be improved from time to time, I'd say cautiously now, and we professionalized relatively quickly with automated testing, automated deployment, with a build server that runs every night and runs all the tests, to the point where we now automatically upload service packs every night that contain the latest changes. so that customers can easily test them quickly. And so, I have to say, the world has completely turned around since I started working here. And I have no illusion that it will always continue this way, because there are always new innovations and ideas coming, and we try to adapt them, to simply use them for ourselves. Right now, for example, the AI trend. That means we naturally have GitHub Copilot in use. We've written various tools that use OpenAI APIs. This way, we constantly reinvent ourselves. And that's fun.
I do miss one thing, yes. That's no secret. I think the viewers will certainly miss it from time to time as well, and that is the native Linux support. Clearly.
I think it would be very exciting if we had an answer to Linux hosting questions. This means that the question of how to get list and label running on Linux is coming up more and more frequently. We're also wondering about this, or rather we already have some ideas, and I think that's the next big thing we'll be working on.
There are a lot of features still in the background, which are also mature, and I think we can be excited about what will come in the future. We won't be running out of work anytime soon.
No, mainly the combat events we have, because every year a summer party or release parties or trips and things like that, then that's something special. So after 20 years, going sledding and things like that, that's really great.
The exciting part is definitely that we have really cool people on the team, most of whom also stood by us for many, many years now, having a very good overview, both of the tech stack we work with and the challenges we've had to overcome over the years. And the nice thing is that they have stayed with us, so we've had relatively little turnover. As a result, friendships have naturally formed within the team, and when new developers join, we can quickly share experiences and knowledge with them, so they become productive very quickly. And that's fun, working together as a team.
Yes, you can have fun at work. That's what I've learned above all. It's very important, I've always told my kids, to choose something you enjoy. That's very important. Although some people say, don't turn your hobby into a job, I've done it, and it's fun.